Hi, this is Joyce. Let me take you on a journey today, a journey through time with my dear teacher, Frederick of Feldenkrais. We'll travel to many lands and explore new territory and even a little jazz. Thank you. For me, the course in Feldenkrais has been revelatory. I've gone to PT, and PT is very different because I've had hip revisions. Okay, so I've had a minimum of 4 operations on my hips. And PT is you work until you're hurt, which is very bad for anybody. Whereas Feldenkrais is a de-stressing movement that makes you totally aware of your movements. And it makes you feel more fluid. And I think this would be wonderful for people, especially now, because of the trauma that most of us are undergoing.
I couldn't agree with you more. I think that this is a perfect time for people to do something that is de-stressing, that is empowering, that feels good, that is an educational format as opposed to an endurance format. I've been through physical therapy myself, and it seems like every time I'm approaching this, now this again, as if I'm looking to what I'm doing in physical therapy is I'm looking to fix that which is impaired and move it forward. In Feldenkrais, it's a learning modality, so it's not assuming that there's anything wrong with you. It's saying, okay, you're a human being, let's see what you got, and let's move forward from there. And it, unlike physical therapy, doesn't treat your tissues as simply tissues that need to be put through the paces to get better. Instead, it accesses your brain, so your brain organizes movement based on the lessons so that you can move more effectively and things fall into place. Not just physically, but as you were mentioning during these times, spiritually. Moshe Feldenkrais himself said, I'm really not interested in creating flexible bodies, although that comes. The ability to move better, that definitely comes. And that's the most obvious. He was interested, he said, in creating flexible minds so that we can return to our full human dignity. A great aspiration, an amazing aspiration, but that's really what he was looking for. And that's, I think, one reason why people feel so good at the end of a lesson, and they want to have conversation, and they're just alive. And
For me, it was revelatory. I purchased a Tempur-Pedic bed, and I haven't done the lessons yet on the floor because it's always been difficult for me to get up from the floor. I can get down, but I really have to hold on to something. So, but you know what? After taking some of these lessons, I'm feeling so much more agile. And when I get up, like yesterday, what you did with the towel, when you had us place the towel on our hands, I was okay until I was thinking about how am I going to get it behind me. But what happened is, for the first time in many years, I was able to smoothly turn on to my stomach from my side. And I said, wow, you've really made progress, because I could move from one side to the other and then flip over, and whether the towel was there or not didn't matter anymore.
Yeah. Yeah,
it was revelatory, and when I get up, I feel like I'm liquid.
Hello. Yeah, there's someone who took class with us years back, and I hope she'll be back with us soon, who had a similar situation. She just knew that she was not able to do certain things, and that was past. And in her youth, she was able to do certain things, and that was in her youth. Well, she finds herself now looking back at her life when she used to be old. She said she was with her husband on the subway, and while she was on the subway, she knew she could not reach up and hold on to the bar because there's no way to do that. But the subway jostled, and so she instinctively reached up, and she said, "Oh my gosh, I can do that."
I can reach
because she had the mobility, she had the agility that you spoke of. And she said, "That's amazing. Look at what I can do." I had a beautiful experience that I'd love to share. It's a bit bittersweet in that someone came to start taking classes with me about, I'd say 20 years ago. A lovely woman who said she had been through, she had gone to a few doctors who told her, "You know, you're 70 years old. You used to play the piano, but there's just no way you're going to be able to do that again. Your shoulders, you've lost the mobility, you have problems, you can't do that." And so she said, "That's very interesting. I know what really will not happen again is I will not be coming back to your office."
Good.
So she came to, I guess we could edit this out if you need. She came to Equinox, where I was teaching classes, and she said, "Is there anything you can do here in a health and wellness facility for me?" And I said, "Well, there's this crazy bald-headed guy named Frederick. He teaches something upstairs, and people seem to have great experiences with it. Try it." So she came in, and she told me that she had difficulty moving her arms, but she'd like to do it. So she got down on the ground, and like you, there were things that she knew she couldn't do, and then she found all of a sudden she was doing that. If she included her chest, and all of a sudden all these other things happened, much more than just the sum of the parts. So she could turn, she could move, and then she could do that, and it was bigger. She was like, "This is unbelievable." And it's so easy. I don't have to lift weights or get on a treadmill. I'm not doing any of those harsh things. I'm not even doing physical therapy. I'm exploring, and I'm finding more of myself. So she kept coming to class, and she said, "I'm not going to miss a class. This is my future." So we became friends. It turns out, to give you a sense of how amazing a woman she is, she I guess about 6 months ago, at 90 years old, went to see a pianist, a jazz pianist, and she said, "I love him. That's fantastic. I know that you're supposed to start studying jazz piano really early, like at 4 years old.
Yeah.
But I'm only 86 years too late. So I'm going to study jazz piano." She already was a classical pianist, as I mentioned. Well, she continued to play, she continued to come to class, and then she started moving well, and she said, "I can't believe it. I'm standing up straight. I move beautifully. This is unbelievable." Then she said, "I'm playing again. I've started playing music." And I said, "Wow." Now, to give you an indication of the type of spirit she is, she's the type of person who says, "Oh, I'm 86 years too late, big deal." That's her spirit. So she invited me to a concert that she was going to hold up at Barnard, up at Columbia University. I thought maybe she'd have 5 or 10 people, something like that. She was already a woman in her 80s who hadn't played publicly in, 15 years. I went, I was shocked. The place was packed. I said, "Oh my gosh, that's really amazing." Now, I'll tell you my recollection. I'm not saying that this is what happened, but my recollection is I sat there with a large audience, and Barbara, the woman, entered in the back. She had beautiful blue eyes and white hair and a turquoise outfit that just made her eyes fill the room. And it was as if, what I recall is that she never touched the ground. Joyce, she floated from the back of the room down the aisle and sat down and played the most beautiful Chopin. It was absolutely gorgeous. Chopin was her favorite composer. And her entire body was in the motion. It was so beautiful. I mean, I have tears in my eyes now. She and I, we used to hang out together and have a lovely time. Unfortunately, she passed on around the end of the year, and she transitioned. That was devastating. But she was such a joy in my life, and I can confidently say vice versa. And I feel like I facilitated her having the last 20 years of her life so much richer than they would have been had she listened to the doctor who said, "Honey, you're 70 years old, hang it up."
That's
And,
right.
yeah, she again, before she met me, she was the type to say, "No, you hang it up. I'm hanging you up."
And I think that's true. Nobody can say what's your capacity. What can you do? Because life itself is a learning process. If you're not always learning, you're not living life to the fullest.
Exactly.
So it's like opening up yourself to new ideas and new experiences.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. And
Because
it's keeping me vibrant, that's for sure.
right,
Uh,
it must be working for you. And Feldenkrais did this in the 40s. So how old was he when he started the movement?
Well, it's hard to say when it actually began because there are components of his life that led to the method at different times. For example, as a very young man, he left home at 14, and his father was a grand rebbe, I think it's called, a very high-level rabbi.
Sure.
And he said, "You know what? There's only room for one of us in this house." So he left and he emigrated to what was then Palestine. His charisma was such that by the time he got to Palestine from Eastern Europe, many other adolescents had chosen to travel with him. So the charisma of being able to say, I can make my own way and others will follow me, and they did. That's a big part of the method, to be able to stand up and do that. In addition to earn a living as an adolescent boy, he worked in construction and he was fascinated by physics. Like, how do you put things together? And if you look at a lesson, you see that construction element of this component and that component. So that's there. He, in addition, had a fabulous experience. His life was really amazing. There's a strong intellectual side to this. And you mentioned learning. Unlike a yoga class or a Pilates class or weightlifting, where you treat there's a mental aspect, but it's really about your body. In Feldenkrais, every lesson, as you've noticed, is a different lesson. Every lesson requires that you be in the place of learning because you don't know what I'm going to ask you next. It's always different. And I'm not Jewish, but I understand, since I was kind of raised in a Jewish tradition, we can talk about that some other time, about the constant searching and the constant looking and questioning that's in Judaism. So that even precedes his leaving home at 14. When he, as an intellectual, a young intellectual, some people decided to create a fund for him to study in Paris. He wanted to go on and study, and he did, and they created the money for him. He got to Paris, he taught, and while there at the Sorbonne, he saw that there was a doctoral program that had just been created that combined theoretical and practical physics. And he said, what a wonderful program. That would be perfect for me. It's too bad I can't do it. So the other members of the faculty said, well, why can't you do it? He said, well, I'm not even a citizen. And they said, Moshe, his name is Moshe Feldenkrais. They said, Moshe, we created this program for you. This doctorate program is for you. It's a DSc, it's a Doctorate of Sciences, and this is for you because you have a practical sense of physics as well as a theoretical understanding. So he did that. While doing that, telling the story a little out of order, he had created for himself and young Jewish people in Israel, in Palestine at the time, a self-defense format. The Arabs in Palestine were allowed to have knives, and the Britons, of course, were armed. But Jews did not have access to military weaponry. So he said, well, what can we do? And he said, well, we can use our noggins, and we can figure out what it is that somebody will do if they attack us, and use our instinctive movement, which we're going to do anyway. When somebody comes to strike you, what do? You put your hands up. So he said, so I will develop a self-defense format where when somebody comes with their hand to strike us, we instinctively do this and then we follow. And so he created an entire self-defense program back in Palestine, of course, which is now Israel.
Right.
The reason that that's relevant is that one night while he was in Paris, he saw that there was a fellow teaching about a new type of self-defense from Asia. And he said, oh, that sounds interesting. You know, I'm curious. I developed my own. I actually published a book on it. So he went to the embassy, and he was not invited. He just walked to the embassy, and he said, I hear that there's a talk. And they said, look at you, you're wearing corduroy pants, and this is an embassy. You can't walk in here like that. And he said, well, that's outrageous. I'm really, really a very special person. So he went back and he got his book, and he said, give this book to that man who's talking here. And once he sees how brilliant I am, he'll definitely invite me in. So they took the book to the person who's leading, and he opened it up. His name is Cohen. He opened the book and he said, oh, this is interesting. Have the man come in. So Moshe Feldenkrais very confidently walked in to watch this little old man named Kano, Japanese fellow, teach. And but then Kano, a little man, was taking these big sumo wrestlers and throwing them around the room and doing all kinds of stuff. And he said, Moshe said, oh, this is just, this is a charlatan. This is nonsense. That's just crazy. So after that, Moshe was not impressed at all. But Kano said to him, oh, I read your book, and it's an interesting book. It's interesting. It's pretty good. So Moshe Feldenkrais said, what do you mean? I'm brilliant. It's a wonderful book. Why do you say it's just pretty good? He said, well, there's some problems. I'll show it to you. Come back tomorrow. So Moshe, intrigued, went back the next day. And Moshe said, well, take a look at this. It's wonderful. And so the little Japanese man said, well, unless, of course, you do. Doo-doo. And the next thing Moshe knew, he was on the ground. He said, what is that? So then Moshe said, well, what about this one here? And he did it. And the next thing Moshe knew, he was thrown across the room. So Moshe said, this is incredible. What is this? And he said, well, my name is Kano, and I'm the developer of Judo. And I think that you're really charismatic. I like you. I think if you study this, you can actually help me to make Judo a household word. So he did, and Moshe Feldenkrais became a very high-level black belt in Judo, and ended up opening up Judo schools all over Europe. And if you think about Judo, the softness, the elegance, how it's not about force, but it's about using forces, so that when I introduce an idea to you, it's almost like it's unveiled. The way a Judo master, it's inevitable that you go where you go, like those sumo wrestlers flew across the room, or Moshe himself flew across the room when the little old man took him here and took him there. So that's another step in the development of the work.